laugh at him, which is weird because you're not really my type. I usually go for alpha males.
That's not weird at all, because in humans, the very idea of the alpha male makes absolutely no sense. What do you think an alpha male is?
A confident, assertive leader who knows what he wants and always gets his way. You know, somebody who says things like, get swole and muscle milk and hi, I'm Vin Diesel.
Okay, at the very beginning of this video, we need to define our terms. When we're talking about alpha males or beta males, we're talking about social dominance. Saying that social dominance doesn't exist or doesn't make sense in humans is fucking retarded. It clearly exists. It clearly exists in humans. It clearly serves a purpose. You see social dominance everywhere. And yet clearly the social dominance hierarchy isn't staffed by gym bros talking about muscle milk and I'm Vin Diesel. So where's the disconnect? To answer that question, I'm going to be quoting from an article called Social Dominance Explained Part 1, written by a PhD named Dario, with a last name I'm not even going to pretend I know how to pronounce, but it says, quote, "Dominance is a characteristic of highly social animals such as humans, in which individuals of the same species compete intensely with one another for food, mates, territory, or any other resource including money. In highly social species, individuals establish social relationships with their family members, sexual partners, friends and enemies, and coworkers and competitors. A social relationship exists when two individuals interact repeatedly over time. They remember their past interactions and have expectations about their future ones. Social relationships can be strong or weak, good or bad. A problem common to all relationships, no matter how strong or good they are, is one of conflicting interests. Individuals want to act in ways that benefit themselves at the expense of their partner. Individuals with close social relationships interact regularly, and their interests clash multiple times a day. The easiest way for two individuals to resolve a disagreement would be to have a fight. The winner gets what he wants, and the loser, well, loses. Disagreements between two parties can also be solved by negotiation, leading to compromise. The problem is that these ways of settling disagreements can be very costly and not always effective. Fighting can cause significant damage, both physical and psychological, to the parties involved in their relationship, possibly leading to its dissolution. While negotiation can entail a significant cost of time, energy, and cognitive and emotional resources. For example, constant worrying and rumination. Continuous fighting or negotiation also makes relationships unstable and stressful. Mother Nature has found a better solution to the problem of settling disagreements: dominance. Two individuals in a relationship establish dominance with each other so that every time a disagreement arises, there is no need for fighting or negotiation. The outcome is always known in advance because it's always the same. The dominant individual gets what he wants and the subordinate doesn't. All that is needed when a disagreement occurs is some communication between the dominant and the subordinate. The dominant says to the subordinate, "We are doing this my way," with a threatening look and tone of voice, and the subordinate smiles submissively and says, "Okay." There is no risk of injury and no waste of time or energy or cognitive or emotional resources. The relationship is stable and predictable, and both partners can accomplish whatever joint goals they have. Dominance doesn't exist because it's beneficial to a species, the community, or the family. Dominance is established within a relationship because it has a net benefit to each individual, which means that its benefits are greater than its costs. The benefits and costs of dominance, however, are different for the dominant and the subordinate. The benefits to the dominant are obvious. He gets what he wants. If there was a fight with a subordinate, the dominant would likely win the fight. But by resolving the disagreement through threats and submissive smiles instead of fighting, the dominant benefits by reducing the risk of injury. The costs of maintaining dominance include having to intimidate the subordinate every now and then to remind them who is in charge, and some anxiety and stress associated with the preoccupation that the subordinate might be plotting a rebellion. These costs are small when compared to the huge costs a subordinate has to pay, always letting the dominant get what he wants, but the subordinate benefits too. If there was a fight with the dominant, the subordinate would likely lose the fight. So not only would the subordinate not get what he wants, but by fighting he would risk major injury and stress. By smiling submissively to the dominant instead of fighting, the subordinate benefits from reducing the risk of injury. So the advantage of establishing dominance to the subordinate is that he cuts his losses. Cutting one's losses, that's it? Yes, the truth is that subordination sucks and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Behaving submissively to the dominant is advantageous for the subordinate only as a short-term strategy to give the subordinate some time to acquire more physical strength or political power to mount an effective rebellion against the dominant. For example, it's advantageous to a younger and smaller individual to be subordinate to an older and larger one until the former has grown to be as large as or larger than the latter. Then a fight will become necessary and advantageous. If the subordinate never challenges the dominant, the cost of subordination will continue to accumulate over time, and at some point, this would become a maladaptive strategy. The cost would be greater than the benefits. A dominant can do two things to keep the dominant's relationship stable and prevent a rebellion from the subordinate. First, a dominant can use any means at his disposal to keep the subordinate from acquiring more power and to increase the potential cost of rebellion. For example, by threatening the subordinate with violence against himself and his family members. This is a strategy used by dictators and despotic political regimes, and also by domineering people in their personal relationships. Second, a dominant can increase the benefit to the subordinate by sharing some resources with him, by giving the subordinate a small piece of the pie, or by giving the appearance that this is the case. This is by treating the subordinate nicely and making him think that his predicament is not so bad after all. This is what benevolent or manipulative leaders do in democratic societies or in their personal relationships. Bottom line, dominance between two individuals helps keep the peace and increase stability and predictability in the relationship, thereby allowing both partners to benefit from their relationship. Dominance, however, is a better deal for the dominant than for the subordinate, because the latter pays disproportionately the price for the peace. If one is in a weak position and unlikely to win a fight against a formidable opponent, it's okay to be subordinate, but only for a short time. And if this time is used to increase one's strength or power, patience is a virtue for a subordinate, but resignation is the kiss of death." End quote. But the question now becomes, why are women attracted to alpha males, or in other words, socially dominant males? And of course, it's so obvious. A dominant male can compete better against other males to acquire more resources, more power, more everything. And women want to attach themselves to those men, because any power, resources, status, anything they can acquire, it becomes theirs if they're attached to that male. If many men are competing for territory, the most dominant one is going to acquire the best territory, with the best food, the best water, the best shelter, whatever. The female that mates with that male then gets to enjoy that territory as well. You see this all throughout the animal kingdom, including in humans.
Oh, so like this guy. What up, freaks? Name's Alpha Adam. I'm confident, straight up banging, and if you think women don't love me, I'm gonna debunk the F out of that myth.
Yeah, I hate to break this to you, but acting like a gym bro, showing off your chest hair, and getting a faux hawk doesn't make you an alpha male. You see this a lot in bars or clubs or whatnot. Two guys will be vying for the attention of a woman, and the men will start to argue, fight, try to out-alpha each other by threatening to kick the other's ass, trying to get the other man to back down. But this is almost always a bluff. The guy very rarely actually wants to get into a fist fight over a woman he doesn't even know. Especially in today's modern era where you can go to jail for assault and so forth, it's not worth it. When it comes to the true alpha, women will seek them out. There's no reason for them to chase pussy. Pussy will come to them. Women are naturally attracted to their money, status, power, or whatever. They never need to go up to a man or a woman and announce that. As long as they keep their money, status, and power, women are going to throw themselves at them all the time.
Attraction to alphas is genetic, comes from nature. I'm like the alpha wolf, the leader of the pack. Hell yeah, I'm bleeding. Well, all of that is wrong, because alpha wolves don't exist. In fact, the term alpha wolf was disavowed by the very scientist who popularized it. The story starts in 1977.
While doing research in a national park, a wildlife biologist named L. David Meach seemed to observe that one wolf emerged as the dominant male.
Aha! One wolf is the dominant leader, the big wolf daddy! That's the alpha wolf.
He wrote a book on the idea, and it became a media sensation.
Alpha wolves are real, and I love them, and I bet humans are like this too. Ow, ow, ow!
But 20 years later, Meach tried to replicate his research in the wild. And when he did, he realized he had made a terrible mistake.
Those aren't dominant wolves, those are mommies and daddies. Wolves don't have an alpha hierarchy at all, they're just parents. I must alert the masses.
Meach renounced the term alpha wolf and spent years trying to get his own book taken off the shelves.
Stop reading this, I bet you lies. Alpha wolves aren't real!
It was too late. The term had taken on a life of its own, and we haven't stopped using it since.
So alpha wolves are just parents. Huh. I guess my therapist was right. I really do have daddy issues.
Not only is the fact that the alpha wolf is the daddy not contradictory to the concept of the alpha wolf, it's actually self-fulfilling. The alpha wolf is the one with sexual access to the most females. He's going to have the most children. He's going to father nearly all the children because he is the alpha wolf. Thus, he's also going to be the daddy. These aren't even remotely contradictory.
Nah. Maybe there's no alpha wolves, but I know crap too. Alpha males are found in chimps, our closest genetic relatives. Weird. You are more aggressive than me, but also wronger. First of all, chimps aren't our closest genetic relatives. Bonobos are, and bonobos live in a matriarchal society.
Alright, you are factually wrong about bonobos being humans' closest relatives. In fact, both chimpanzees and bonobos are 1.2% different DNA-wise to humans. Now, why is this? Because bonobos are a subspecies of chimpanzee. They're basically a small group of chimpanzees that got isolated in the Congo and because of their environment became smaller, weaker, and matriarchal, as you pointed out. Now, modern social scientists are trying to argue because of the matriarchal structure of the bonobos that they are actually humanity's closest relatives as opposed to the chimpanzees, which are patriarchal. And I can disprove this extremely easily by looking at the environments of chimpanzees, bonobos, and humans. Bonobos lived in a part of the Congo with no predators. Other than the occasional river crocodile, bonobos had no threats. So they got all the food they wanted, there were no threats. Because there was no need for strong men to protect the troops and acquire food, because the jungle and the river provided for everybody and there were no predators, men became less socially necessary and the females began dominating over time. What's interesting to note, the reason why bonobos are so small and weak compared to chimpanzees is because when the females became dominant, they began self-selecting smaller, weaker men that they could more easily physically dominate. This actually caused the entirety of the bonobo to become smaller and weaker. Chimpanzees, on the other hand, had to live in the jungle with predators. They had to compete for resources against other animals. And it's also worth noting out that they are far more evolutionarily successful than the bonobo. The bonobo only lives in one very small pocket of the Congo, and they are extremely endangered because they can't defend themselves against other animals. Chimpanzees, on the other hand, have learned to adapt across 6 different countries in Africa naturally. They can compete for resources and fight off other rivals and predators. Bonobos cannot. Chimpanzees also naturally evolved the use of tools, whereas scientists had to train the bonobos to use tools themselves. Chimpanzees are far more intelligent than bonobos. They're also larger and much stronger than bonobos. Now, because chimpanzees didn't have all their food provided to them, and because they had to compete with other predators and rival animals for resources, they maintained a patriarchal society. Now, let's look at human society. If you look at the entirety of human history, is the entirety of human history a story of living in a utopian society where all of your needs were provided for, where there were no predators or predation, and you could just go and do whatever you wanted and so forth? No. The entirety of human history is one of constant war for resources and survival. This makes human society very akin to chimpanzees as opposed to bonobos. Now, it's worth pointing out that in modern times, because of the welfare state, we are creating a bonobo-like environment, but it's completely artificial. In the case of the bonobos, the river naturally provided for all their needs, and their isolation protected them. But in the real world, the welfare state has to be paid for with taxes. It has to be taken from people, and just like we learned with Venezuela, you eventually run out of other people's money. This isn't nature providing, this is the state taking. And eventually you run out of other people's money, everything collapses, and then you have war, which is what you see in Venezuela. This is why bonobos are so endangered, they can't defend themselves. And in these societies that become so addicted to welfare and become so matriarchal that they emasculate their men, so the men can no longer protect the society, as soon as that society becomes weak enough, it's destroyed. When you have a socialist welfare state which simulates the environment of the bonobos, that environment will become matriarchal. That environment will begin emasculating their men, and when the welfare state and that socialist system does collapse, the men who have become emasculated are going to die. Another group of men who come from an outside culture are going to come in, kill all the emasculated men, and take the women as mates. This is what you see in other animals. When you have a weak matriarchal society, eventually a patriarchal society will come in, kill the men, take the women, and that's the end of that society. This is why you don't see matriarchal societies in human history. The only matriarchal societies that continue to exist are highly isolated and have nothing worth stealing anyway. Any matriarchal society that had anything worth taking and wasn't isolated was conquered. So the lesson of history is you do not want to become like the bonobos. When you live in some utopian society where all your needs are provided for, it breeds weakness, it breeds stupidity, and it eventually causes collapse and replacement.
In chimps, the alpha male is the most dominant, most aggressive bro, and that means he has first access to food, resources, and of course, mates. Hell yeah, baby! All right. Not exactly. Contrary to popular belief, in chimps, the most aggressive male doesn't always become the leader. Smaller, more mild-mannered males can actually become dominant by doing favors and obsessively grooming other chimps.
Excuse me, you seem to have something in your hair.
Thanks. Oh, hey, let me ask you, what do you think I should do with my life? Wait, whoa, what am I doing? Get off of me!
Okay, Adam, I knew you were full of shit. Luckily, you posted your source in the upper left, so I'm going to look at the abstract of the study that you sourced. This is from Alpha Male Chimpanzee Grooming Patterns, Implications for Dominant Style, written by M.W. Foster, published November 24th, 2008. It reads, quote, "In social primates, individuals use various tactics to compete for dominance rank. Grooming displays and contract aggression are common components of a male chimpanzee's dominance repertoire. The optimal combination of these behaviors is likely to differ among males, with individuals exhibiting a dominant style that reflects their tendency to use cooperative and/or agonistic dominance tactics. Here we examined the grooming behavior of 3 alpha male chimpanzees at Gombe National Park, Tanzania. We found that 1. These males differed significantly in their tendency to groom with other males. 2. Each male's grooming patterns remained consistent before, during, and after his tenure as alpha. And 3. The 3 males tended to groom with high, middle, and low-ranking partners equally. We suggest that body mass may be one possible determinant of differences in grooming behavior. The largest males exhibited the lowest overall grooming rates, whereas the smallest males spent the most time grooming others. This is probably because large males are more effective at physically intimidating subordinates to achieve alpha status. A small male may need to compensate for reduced size by investing more time and energy in grooming, thereby ensuring coalitionary support from others. Rates of contact aggression and charging displays confirm to this prediction, suggesting that each male exhibit a different dominant style. This completely contradicts what you're trying to say. You're saying that, oh no, it's not about the aggressive, sometimes the alpha male can be grooming. Yes, the smaller, weaker alphas can resort to grooming in order to keep the betas from rising up and overthrowing them. I talked about this at the very beginning when I was defining social dominance hierarchy. So the smaller, weaker alphas who can't rely on physical domination because in relation to the betas, they're not that much stronger. They're overall weaker. They're closer to their subordinates. If they relied on physical intimidation, they would get their asses kicked eventually. And so they use the other tactic. They begin grooming their betas. They say, hey guy, it's not so bad. You know, I'm a good alpha. Let me get those ticks out of your fur. Hey, that feels pretty good, right? Yeah, see, I'm not so bad. You let me fuck all the women. It's okay. Let me get those ticks out of your fur. Yeah, it's not so bad. That's all it is. This in no way invalidates the concept of the alpha male or social dominance. This is actually a tool of social dominance. If the alpha is big and strong and can use physical presence alone to intimidate the betas, he doesn't need to groom them. And the study you cite says that. The bigger alphas groom the least. The smaller, weaker alphas groom the most. Social dominance isn't about being aggressive unless you can back it up.
I am the strongest, most aggressive male, so I am the alpha, now and forever. No, you're not. Unlike chimps, human social hierarchies are constantly in flux. So you might be the dominant male here, but if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons,
It's your turn. Hello? What do you want to do?
I attack with my sword.
Your sword? You are a magic user. Do you see a sword on your character sheet?
No.
Well, then you can't attack with a sword, can you, freak?
Unlike animals, no one is the same type of person in all situations. Human society is much more complicated than that.
So there's a huge problem with this D&D scenario because the entire premise is about alpha males and women and who they're attracted to. Women are not attracted to nerds and geeks and stuff like that. I know there's like these gamer girls, but even the gamer girls, even the girls who go to conventions and shit like that and are into geek culture, they don't fuck the nerdy guys. They still fuck the bad boys. Because when it comes to social dominance of women, they don't give a shit whether you're like the dungeon master of your D&D group. When it comes to going out there and acquiring resources, whether you're living in the jungle and you're hunting animals, or whether you're working in some kind of financial firm and you're climbing up the corporate ladder, being confident and assertive and aggressive and going out there and killing it and bringing it home is what women want. Doesn't matter if you go to a D&D group and you're like the least popular person there. Women aren't fucking the dungeon master.
So to say that this guy is an alpha male or that guy's a beta male makes straight up 0 sense.
Whatever, nerd. The most aggressive male gets the most aggressive tail. It's true forever because it rhymes.
Actually, research shows that agreeableness, kindness, and generosity are among the strongest indicators of a long, happy relationship.
Oh, eat my feet. Those are beta traits.
Oh, well then I guess betas are the alphas of love.
Again, going back to the original article about social dominance. If you're in a weak position, you might have to treat your subordinates nicely to keep them in line. And in modern society, because of all the gynocentrism and feminism and everything being slanted towards the woman, they have to give and take. Otherwise, the woman's going to fuck them over in divorce court. And what's funny is, in nature, when you have matriarchal species, the women can get everything they want on their own. They don't need the men. Men are basically just something to have sex with when they want to have kids, but they really don't need them for anything. In the spotted hyena, where the woman is the bigger and stronger of the sexes, the woman does all the hunting herself. She doesn't need the man to bring her anything. In humans, that's not the case. Women still rely on men. I mean, yeah, women are like, oh, we have our own careers now. You have gender quotas. The government has to force companies to hire you because you're so fucking useless. You want paid maternity leave and paid period leave, and you want automatic promotions and diversity quotas. It's all bullshit. Again, it's all artificial, just like the welfare state. Without the welfare state paying poor people to reproduce, without gender quotas forcing companies to hire you, you wouldn't have this money. You wouldn't be independent. It's all an illusion. And at the end of the day, that's just how humans are. Humans are a sexually dimorphic species where sexual dimorphism favors the male. It's the opposite in other species such as spotted hyenas, spiders, praying mantises, bees, so forth. There are species where the female is the bigger and stronger of the sexes, and the dynamics are completely different. But humans aren't like that. So unless you want to change human biology, it's never going to change. Women are reliant on men. And because women are reliant on men, they want reliable men. They want men that can bring them resources and take care of them and their children. Thus, they want confident, strong alpha men that can acquire the resources that they need. And the welfare state and all these other things creating a bonobo-like society are temporary and artificial. Once you run out of other people's money, once the welfare state collapses, these strong, independent women that need a man like a fish needs a bicycle are going to learn very, very quickly just how weak and dependent they are on those bicycles.
Enough lies. I am the alpha. I am your god.
Leave Beta Adam alone.
You saved me. Also, just Adam is fine.
This is Turd Flinging Monkey. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.